Are you thinking about investing in Airbnbs, but feel hesitant because you're worried about buying in the wrong city? Well, here are 6 popular Airbnb cities you might want to avoid buying properties in right now.
We are the Real Estate Robinsons.
Hey guys, if this is your first time here, I'm Sarah.
I'm Tony.
And we are real estate investors who've quit our day jobs by investing in Airbnbs. And we're here to show you how you can do the same. So we recently released a video where we shared 5 cities where Airbnb revenues are going up.
And everyone seemed to enjoy that one, so we're following up with the kind of anti-version of that video. And today we're going to show you 6 well-known Airbnb cities where revenues have actually come down from last year.
Now, first, just because we're sharing this list, that doesn't mean that all Airbnbs in every city are a bad investment. Literally go back to our last video and you'll find multiple examples of cities that are still seeing revenues go up.
But we wanted to create this video to just kind of caution new investors from investing in a city simply because they've heard the name of that city from other investors, or because they like vacationing there, or because they saw it on a YouTube video.
When you choose a market to invest in, you should always back that decision up with data. And that's the entire purpose of today's video, right? So not to discourage you from getting started, but really just to give you a few more data points so you can make an informed decision.
And today's video is brought to you by Relay Financial. Relay is the business bank we use to fuel our multiple businesses, and it's the only business bank we recommend. And we'll share more on Relay later, but if you want to sign up for an account, head over to relayfi.com/therealestaterobinsons.
But first, let's break down how we came up with this list of 6 cities.
Now, we wanted to focus on markets that have kind of gotten a lot of press or hype as some of the quote-unquote best places to invest over the last couple of years.
We checked places like AirDNA's list from the past few years, and being part of the Airbnb industry, naturally, we tend to know which cities are popular for investors.
Now, once we had a list of potential cities, we went to AirDNA and we found the occupancy, ADRs, and RevPAR for each city.
So occupancy measures how often properties are booked.
Average daily rate, or ADR for short, measures how much people pay for any given night.
And revenue per available room, or a RevPAR for short, compares your occupancy and ADR into one number, and it's a solid way to measure revenue. So this is the number we'll be reporting in this video.
Now, a positive change in RevPAR from this year to last year means that revenues have increased, and a negative change in RevPAR means revenues have gone down or decreased.
We're recording this video in August, so we only looked at the data through the first 7 months of 2023 and compared that to the first 7 months of 2022.
So yes, there's a chance that even though these 6 cities are down through the first 7 months, they could potentially be going up for the rest of the year.
But at least you'll have a good understanding of where these markets are headed. So let's count down the 6 cities we found. Coming in at number 6 is Kissimmee, Florida, or Kissimmee.
We're not from Florida, so we don't. Is it Kissimmee? Is it Kissimmee? Someone
I like
educate
saying
us.
Kissimmee.
I think it's Kissimmee. So Kissimmee is a city right next to Orlando, Florida, and it's a super popular spot for people that are visiting Disney World and all of the other amusement parks and attractions in and around that area.
It's also one of the most popular cities in the US for Airbnb investors. There are over 31,000 active Airbnbs in this city. That is like so crazy. I'd be so afraid to invest there.
Most of the other cities on this list have a few thousand listings. So it just goes to show you how popular this market is for Airbnb investors.
But there's also a massive demand in this market, clearly, right? So Disney World alone gets 58 million visitors every year, and Universal Studios gets another 10 million or so. So here's the RevPAR data for Kissimmee.
So January went from 181 to 197 for a 9% increase. February went from 221 to 248 for a 12% increase. So the first 2 months are actually pretty good, but things get a little shaky from there. March went from 274 to 271 for a 1% decrease. April went from 283 to 267 for a 6% decrease. May went from 198 to 183 for an 8% decrease. June went from 245 to 219 for a 10% decrease. And July went from 295 to 243 for an 18% decrease. So after a really strong start to the year, we saw this city kind of get get consistently worse month after month.
And overall, Kissimmee saw a 4% decrease in revenue. All right, coming in at number 5 is Sedona, Arizona. So Sedona has 2,900 active listings and is about 2 hours north of Phoenix and about 45 minutes or so south of Flagstaff.
Now, Sedona is made for people that love the outdoors. There's tons of biking and hiking and rock climbing and just outdoorsy things. And apparently, I didn't know this, but it's also a hotspot for people that are into like psychic and spiritual energy.
So there's also tons of spas and resorts if you're looking just for a place to unwind. So here's the data for Sedona.
January went from $188 to $180 for a 4% decrease. February went from $255 to $247 for a 4% decrease. March went from $365 to $321 for a 12% decrease. April went from $346 to $320 for a 6% decrease. May went from $262 to $247 for a 6% decrease. June went from $203 to $209 for a 3% increase. And July went from $188 to $200 for a 7% increase.
So Sedona has seen the opposite trend of Kissimmee, where the first several months were all revenue decreases, but the last 2 months saw revenues jump up a bit, right?
So this trend could continue where the back half of the year kind of outperforms last year, but it'd have to be a pretty solid gains over those last couple of months to make up for the first several months that were all down.
And overall, Sedona saw a 5% decrease in revenue. All right, and coming in at number 4 is Asheville, North Carolina.
Now, Asheville is in the western part of North Carolina, tucked into the Blue Ridge Mountains. And Asheville is a cool city because it gives you a mix of, kind of the outdoorsy things to do, plus all the fun that you get from city life.
So here's the data for Asheville.
January went from 106 to 95 for an 11% decrease. February went from 120 to 117 for a 3% decrease. March went from 157 to 151 for a 4% decrease. April went from 178 to 165 for a 7% decrease. May went from 163 to 154 for a 5% decrease. June went from 175 to 172 for a 2% decrease. And July went from 198 to 180 for a 9% decrease.
And overall, Asheville saw a 6% decrease in revenue. Before we hit the next city on our list, we wanted to talk about Relay Financial and why it's such an important part of our Airbnb business.
And all of our other businesses, really, for that matter. Now, one of the mistakes we made early on in growing our Airbnb business was not having the right business bank to just kind of run all of our money through. And believe it or not, choosing the wrong bank really can cause you tons of just headaches and extra work.
We had issues paying our cleaners and our handyman because Venmo and Zelle have caps on how much money you can send every week, and that's what we used originally. And with all of our properties, we kept hitting those caps daily.
So our cleaners would need to be paid, and we'd have to say, hey, can you wait until next week when this cap kind of resets?
It was so awful.
So awful, and no cleaner wants to hear that. No person on your team wants to hear that after
Nobody
doing
in
the work.
general wants to hear they can't get paid.
They can't get paid.
So the other downside of Venmo was that it kept making bookkeeping harder. Tony was losing his mind.
Yeah, every time we sent a payment, we'd have to screenshot that payment inside of Venmo, take that screenshot, email it to our bookkeeper, and add a little note about what it was for.
Which I kept forgetting to do.
Yeah, we as a team weren't perfect with that process, so it always felt like we were digging through our Venmo transactions, trying to remember why we sent $47 to some random company 6 months ago.
But with Relay, you can add all of your vendors as payees to your account. So from there, Relay allows you to send same-day ACH payments to anyone. It works almost like Venmo does, like literally the same thing.
And whoever you add is sent a secure link from Relay where they can enter their payment details, and then you're able to send that person a payment.
Or like Zelle, I guess.
Yeah, it works very similar to Zelle.
So you can also add a note to every payment. So when our bookkeeper pulls all of our transactions, my transactions, at the end of the month, she's now able to see the exact reason for every single payment I've sent out.
Now, another reason that we truly do love using Relay is that recently they rolled out the ability to set up auto transfer rules. We've got an entire video on how we manage cash flow within our business, so we'll be sure to link to that video in the description. But as a quick kind of run through, we have multiple accounts for every single property that we own and manage, and several at the business level. So every property has two accounts. One is the operating expense account. This is where all the income and expenses flow out of. And then we also have a property reserves account where we're kind of stashing money away for a rainy day.
And at a business level, we have a profit hold account, a tax hold account, an owner's pay account, and a team members payout account.
And every month on the 10th and the 25th, we transfer money from the operating expense account and fill up all of the other accounts. So we might leave maybe 50% of the cash we have on hand in the OPEX account and then put 5% into reserves, and then the rest we split between the other accounts.
But the reason that Relay is so powerful is because it allows you to automatically complete these transfers. So you don't have to do this every month. All you have to do is tell Relay what percentages you want to allocate across all of your accounts, and every single month on whatever dates you choose, it'll literally automatically run those transfers for you.
Now, this may not seem like a big deal at first glance, and I get it, but trust me.
No, it is.
It's super time consuming to manually complete all of those transfers. And to be able to set it up once and then see it run on its own every single month is amazing. I'm telling you.
It's like a true business.
Yeah,
you have a business.
True business.
The last reason Relay is such an amazing business bank is because it allows you to have up to 30 checking accounts for each business you have. So remember, we have 2 checking accounts for every single one of our properties. So we need lots of accounts open.
And most other business banks would cap you at like 3 or 4 or 5 accounts. So you can't set up your accounts the right way, using Profit First, when you're limited to such a small number of accounts to open.
So if you want to sign up for Relay, use the link in our description or head over to relayfi.com/The Real Estate Robinsons. All right, and coming in at number 3 is Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Broken Bow is a small city in southeastern Oklahoma, and it's home to Beavers Bend State Park and Broken Bow Lake.
So naturally, there are tons of outdoor activities here as well. You get boating and fishing at the lake. There's also activities like ATVing and hiking and ziplining in the kind of more mountainy areas.
So here's the data for Broken Bow.
January went from $211 to $166 for a 21% decrease. February went from $209 to $173 for a 17% decrease. March went from $283 to $252 for an 11% decrease. April went from $228 to $188 for an 18% decrease. May went from $224 to $203 for a 10% decrease. June went from $288 to $257 for an 11% decrease. And July went from $338 to $285 for a 16% decrease.
And overall, Broken Bow saw a 15% decrease in revenue. Coming in at number 2 is Waco, Texas.
So before Chip and Joanna Gaines made it a household name, Waco was probably most known for the 60-day standoff between the U.S. government and the cults known as the Branch Davidians back in 1993 that ended with, unfortunately, 86 people dead. So not the best way for a city to make a name for itself.
But today, there's tons of tourism there. Waco is situated between Austin and Dallas, and it's a small but super charming, adorable town, and a lot of their tourism today comes from the Magnolia Empire that Chip and Joanna Gaines have created. Here's the data for Waco.
January went from 105 to 97 for an 8% decrease. February went from 131 to 117 for a 10% decrease. March went from 166 to 148 for an 11% decrease. April went from 167 to 132 for a 21% decrease. May went from 157 to 130 for a 17% decrease. June went from 151 to 127 for a 16% decrease. And July went from 143 to 120 for a 16% decrease.
And overall, Waco saw a 15% decrease in revenue. And coming in at number 1 is freaking Joshua Tree.
Now, obviously, this one hits home for us because we've got, quite a few.
That's why I'm laughing. It's not Penny.
Yeah, we've got quite a few properties out there as well. But part of the reason that we started this channel was to share the good news, right? You guys were with us as we launched many of these properties, but also to share the bad news with our subscribers. And part of the bad news is that Joshua Tree is unfortunately on this list. Now, we're actually working on another video where we'll break down kind of what we believe is happening in Joshua Tree and other markets like that to kind of cause this downturn that we're seeing. And ultimately, like, what is the data that we should be monitoring for markets that we're currently investing in to know if it's moving in the right direction or the wrong direction.
Most probably know Joshua Tree, but for those that don't, it's home to Joshua Tree National Park and is about 2.5 hours east of Los Angeles. The national park gets several million visitors each year. Super cool, quirky town. It's really exploded as an Airbnb market in the last several years. So here's the data for Joshua Tree.
January went from 206 to 158 for a 23% decrease. February went from 244 to 190 for a 22% decrease. March went from 262 to 224 for a 14% decrease. April went from 286 to 240 for a 16% decrease. May went from 197 to 168 for a 15% decrease. June went from 156 to 147 for a 6% decrease, and July went from 166 to 137 for a 17% decrease.
And overall, Joshua Tree saw a 17% decrease in revenue.
Now, before we let you guys go, there's an important point to make. There are always, I repeat, there are always caveats to data like this. The revenue that we reported was the average for the entire market. So this data included the best of the best and the worst of the worst in each city. And I can tell you right now that there are a lot of bad listings in all these markets, right? That it's probably dragging this average down. So what does this mean? It means that there are probably properties within each of these cities that are seeing revenue increases year over year.
So the point of saying all that is don't necessarily think that just because a city is on this list we just listed, it automatically means any property you buy there will be a bad investment. The whole purpose of this video is just to share data with you so that you can make smart choices about your investments.
And if you're thinking about investing in one of these cities, just really double down and really research to try and find properties that are at the top in those markets that are the top performers, and do your best to understand why those properties are doing well and how you can compete with those properties.
Or make sure you're discounting your revenue projections.
If the 2022 data says you should make $100,000, then run your analysis at $80,000 just to be safe.
And if you're still able to get a decent return at that number, then you might have a good deal on your hands.
But again, the purpose of this video is not, I repeat, not to scare you out of investing, just to help you make smarter decisions about where to invest.
Last thing, we want to share with you guys that we've officially launched our Airbnb coaching program. It's called Alpha Host Academy, and we're so excited to tell you more about it.
So when you join Alpha Host, you get a mix of one-on-one coaching, group coaching, on-demand content, and so much more. And our goal is to help you escape the rat race and replace your day job. So if you want to learn more about Alpha Host, head over to alphahostacademy.com and you can book a free call with our team to learn more. Again, that's alphahostacademy.com. And before we go, please connect with us on Instagram. I'm at Tony J. Robinson. My lovely wife is at Sarah Rad Robinson. And if you're on TikTok, give us a follow there at The Real Estate Robinsons. But that is it for today, guys. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll be sure to get back to you. But I'm Tony.
I'm Sarah.
And we are
The Real Estate Robinsons.